24/7 travel assistant team. So it's a hybrid solution between technology and a service.
Thomas?
Yeah, hello. My name is Thomas. I'm the founder and the CEO of APROPLAN. APROPLAN is a platform that helps basically the construction sector digitize their on-site processes. So bottom line, we have an application that they use on their iPad and with whom they are basically replacing pen and paper. We started in 2012, about 60 people right now, and with a target to grow and double basically every year.
And you are in Brussels?
Yes, Brussels, Belgium, rainy Belgium.
Yeah, well, welcome. Well, we got thunderstorms here in Texas, so I get it. Kay-Ingo, welcome.
Yes, hi, Randy. Yes, I'm calling in from sunny Freiburg on the south of Germany here. I'm the CEO of Jedox, joined the company a few years ago. We're quite established since quite some time, already since 16 years, and have accelerated more or less over the last few years. We are approximately 200 people. I never know exactly, external and internal, including our external developers. We are focused on the performance management space, so we help companies to do budgeting, to plan, and to do forecasting with software. Companies like IKEA, Siemens, ServiceMaster, Pfizer, to name a few, or the Ministry of Finance in Israel is also doing their state budget with Jedox technology. So we've been quite stagnant for a while, and now we've accelerated internationally, and looking forward to share some of the thinking.
Well, welcome. Thank you. James.
Hi, my name is James Isilay. I'm CEO and founder of a company called Cognism. Cognism helps businesses to find their next best business opportunity. So we provide contacts level data globally, and we provide like two sets of tools. One tool, Prospector, which helps companies build lists of people to outreach to. They can segment by technology, job title, company type, and then we provide an engagement platform to help them get a higher kind of response rate, so they can book more meetings from that set of contacts. They can email them, phone them, connect to them on social, and then we also provide a technology that embeds inside of Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics that helps to really keep that contact data clean, refreshed, and up to date inside of those systems. We really started in 2016 before I was a computer engineer and an algorithmic trader. Now we're about 30 people, and currently we're growing about 20% monthly. So we're growing extremely fast at the moment. We're currently at 30 people globally. Our main headquarters are in London, and our tech center is Macedonia, and so we have all our engineers there and a little bit in Croatia.
Thank you. Welcome. Marc?
Hi, Marc Zornes. I'm the founder of Winnow. At Winnow, we build technology to help kitchens better understand and prevent food waste. So we work with large commercial kitchens everywhere from IKEA to Carnival Cruise Lines, Compass Group, Accor Hotels, to name a few. Started in 2013, just coming up on our 5-year anniversary. Last year grew about 150% year on year. Right now we have about 70 employees globally. We have offices in London, Singapore, Shanghai, and Dubai, and just opening up in the US at the moment.
Well, thank you, and welcome to all of you. I want to get the conversation started with a statement, and then feel free to challenge this as kind of a somewhat retired CEO myself. We manage the work and we lead the people. And as you guys have scaled up and as you've experienced the growth in your companies, I'm wondering what have been your biggest challenges in each of those aspects of both managing the work and leading the people as you have scaled up. And I'm thinking, for instance, as you guys, especially you guys who were founders, and as the company started, it's pretty common for CEOs to be quite involved in the work as we begin, but at some point we get a little bit further removed from the actual work itself and much more into the leadership role and the strategy role. Marc, let me start with you. Care to chime in?
Sure, yeah. Like I remember starting Winnow when it was literally just me, sort of working part-time, and then pretty quickly decided to make the jump to full-time. If I remember sort of back to the early days, nothing really moved forward unless I was intimately involved in it. And that was both invigorating, but I think some of the hardest times of being an entrepreneur, both in terms of just moving the business forward and even emotionally kind of just getting things done as your business model was a little bit less certain. As we've begun to scale, what's really important for me is making sure that I have people that I can trust and people that I can set the vision with. Now I'm in a place where I've still got about 11 direct reports, which I would say is a lot at the moment, managing people across, pretty much across the world. But what's required for me to be able to make that continue to scale is I think it's about, really setting the right level of support for your leadership and entrusting them to be able to drive things, being the person that is really challenging where the organization should go and kind of asking the tough questions. Are we headed in the right direction? But expecting the rest of the team to deliver. But I think the other thing that's really fundamental in this is just culture, right? Actually having a culture that binds everybody together, that gives everybody, the sort of set of rules and contracts between everyone in the organization on how people are going to make decisions when no one else is in the room is really how you help enable that. And I think that's critical.
Other guys, feel free to just chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the culture point is crucial, and the kind of mistakes that many companies do, and we definitely did in the beginning, is to think that we can hire for talent and then train culture when the person joins, and reality shows that it's not the case. So culture is, what you bring as a package. When you join a company, based on your education, based on who you are as a person, based on where you worked before, and I found it very difficult, especially in a high, kind of exponentially fast-growing startups, take the time and train culture. And I'm not sure if it's possible. And it's not judgment of bad culture or good culture. It's just, is there a fit between what we are looking for and what you can bring as an individual? And for us, this was one of the biggest learning points. Scaling up, we have a bit more than 100 people now in the company, all based in Barcelona, which helps. So we don't have to manage the complexity of multiple geographies like some of my colleagues here. But yeah, hiring for culture was one of the biggest learning points that we had as we scaled, because it's everywhere, and this is exactly what kind of makes and breaks the decision process when you're not in the room.
Yeah, Avi did when as a co-founder. So at the beginning, you getting your hands dirty, you having your hands actually on the work, and over time, you having to acquiesce that challenges to that, and that really is at the heart. And yeah, and I appreciate the conversation of culture and communication, and I want to jump on that. And take a deep dive with all of you next. But I'm wondering now, especially for those founders and those CEOs that are in our audience, or those people that aspire to that, the migration that you have to make especially as a founder or co-founder, of being very involved in the work, whatever that may be for each of you, and then having to push further away from that, and to Marc's point, trusting other people with that work. What was that like for you, Avi? Yeah,
so maybe I'm lucky because so my part when we started was writing code, and I'm a pretty lousy developer. So finding great developers to replace me was actually relieving. Like I was relieved in a way that the product was actually being built in the right way. But seriously, I think yes, it's challenging, especially the trust angle, because how do you trust what feels like your baby early days? At the hands of somebody else that you just met like a couple of months ago, and putting yourself in the middle of discussion is actually blocking many of the discussions, because people take your opinion as the absolute truth, and you have to actually separate yourself from that and let them take the decisions, and probably sometimes make mistakes, but that's how kind of you calibrate and learn. So I think the biggest challenge is trusting that the quality will be good. And my way to do it was hiring people that I I saw that their skill set was way better than mine, and then just sitting back and forcing myself not to participate in the discussions, at least not actively.
Thomas?
Yeah, I'd say there are 3 stages, at least to the point where I am now. The first one is where, as a founder, you do almost everything, where also the things you're bad at, and I think that's where, how we said, like, you can hire then some people who are better than you at some of the things. And then you only do the things you're really good at. And where I'm now, it's more like, now I need to find people who replace me at the things that I think I'm good at. And that's the hard part, is like letting go of the things that not only are you good at, but also you enjoy doing, because that's the only thing that scales. Having not only one person, but maybe 2 or 3 people who are better than you even to do some of these things is hard, because suddenly you feel guilty, at least at some point, you feel guilty because you're not doing anything anymore. You're just kind of orchestrating, and that's not delivering value, or no perceived value, but the people need it, and that's hard. That's my learning curve for last few months and the next coming months, I think.
Yeah, well, to discount the role that you serve in serving the employees, which is fundamentally our job as CEOs, right? James?
Yeah, for me, I guess one of the key learnings that I had last year and going into this year was really, I made, I guess, some classical mistakes of hiring like very experienced hires versus, I guess like younger, less experienced hires. And usually in a startup, you don't have like too much choice, right, in terms of the amount of money that you have to hire experienced hires. And what we found is just that, finding people with a lot of energy that work hard, that are dedicated to the company, that paid off a lot more than the experienced hires that came in with a kind of, especially corporate culture. They were kind of a lot slower paced than the younger hires that we had. And when we sat down and then mapped out process with those hires, then, that's been where we've seen, leaps in terms of our growth and in terms of how we scaled. It's really been hiring lots of young people with lots of energy, mapping out clear processes with them, and then allowing their input when we learn mistakes to just and that's really helped us to scale and grow. I think that bringing in younger people and then giving them empowering them, that creates a great culture in the company naturally, and it also creates a lot of energy and momentum. That's
give us some context, James, of headcount scale up over a certain period of time.
I mean, I think we were
just
around
ballpark.
Maybe towards the end of last year we were at like 10 in December, and then now we're about 30 people. So we've grown very rapidly in the last 6 months. And most of those hires were around January, February time, and most of them were graduates. So my investors, I've got one of the amazing investors we got is called Tom James, who's scaled and sold his own company, and he was really pushing us to hire as young as possible, because he really had seen time and time again at startups that hiring graduates and bringing them into key roles and just empowering them works out a lot better than hiring very experienced people. And so we've got experienced people as advisors, and that's helping a lot. But to actually get the work done and to get the to-do lists done, then throwing graduates to those to-do lists works a lot better than throwing generally very experienced people at those to-do lists. That's what we found. And then you have the experienced advisors that really help guide that process and have known and have scaled companies before and help map out those processes. And that we've got one amazing advisor called Nick Keating who'd scaled a company called Maximizer and helped sell that to Oracle, and that advice has been critical since he's come on board since October to help flesh out those processes for us. That the mix of those two has been a really powerful combination for us.
Yeah, trusted advisors are always a good thing. Kay-Ingo.
Yeah, I'm a little different. I joined as a CEO and was not the founder. So I took over from a founder who has been more developer DNA, and we wanted to transform to a more business development DNA. So I think, like James and the others, recruitment, growing the right talent is critical. And I completely concur with energy and passion versus experience, as a trade-off. On the other hand side, we also had a big challenge because we grew so much internationally. We had to drive a 24/7 approach around the world while building teams in Singapore, in Australia, and Boston, etc. It was really more critical for us to get to English first, for example. We're a German company, so having a language, a lingua franca, was critical, which everybody can understand. Secondly, standardization and repetition. Because bringing in people, new people in Boston, they have to learn very, very quickly while not being in a headquarter. So making sure we have best practice sharing, collaboration platforms, which everybody can align around and participate and contribute without being top down, was absolutely important for accelerating also the knowledge within the organization while not everybody is physically together. And last but not least, we did a lot of changes in the company. We have history, so we didn't start a SaaS only business. We come from a perpetual world, so we are in a big transition mode. And at that time, you also had to manage scale on the one hand side, but also the bottom line on the other hand side, in making sure the investors are right, and while we are also bringing in, I would say, the right amount of customers with the right, I would say, cash flow. So it was that balance which we had to make work, and this is very different if you have a culture where everybody's very flexible in doing things the way they are used to it, and now you have to say, okay, these are some standards which we're applying. These are some processes which we're applying so that you can universally scale, which was very difficult also from a cultural perspective for the company and for people who have been here from the start. So getting that all together is, I would say, a continuous challenge and motivation at the same time.
And you've been the CEO there how long?
3.5 years now.
Well, then let me begin with you. So, because culture and communication in all of our shows, and it doesn't matter if we're talking to developers, if we're talking to HR people, if we're talking to marketing and salespeople, it comes up show after show after show. And it seems to be kind of the elephant in the room for companies that are accelerating growth, want to accelerate growth, want to scale up, culture and communication. And they're almost always tied together for obvious reasons. So let me begin with you. Kay, how has culture and communication changed? Let's just take your tenure there as CEO in the last 3.5 years, especially since you are, and not everybody here is leading a virtual team, or at least some aspect of the team that is virtual, that isn't right there where you are. I mean, what are, and I'm specifically going to be interested in some leadership team structures that you have found that work better for you than others, maybe team size, and how you've even hired or directed hiring for culture as opposed to just skill. I don't know, just what are your experiences?
You have great experiences, you have not so great experiences, right? To come to James, I mean, we have great experienced people who are in role for quite a long time and who are very experienced, which we want to keep, maintain, grow at the same time while they bring their experience also to others. So I think a mixture between experience and passion, energy. I would say youth is the wrong word, because you can be 50 and be passionate and energetic, or you can be, I don't know, the other way around and be a very young person. So it's more about the mixture of people you bring into play, and it's a good balance of experience and passion.
Have you had any challenges of legacy people who have been there for a long time, and they're kind of entrenched, and then newcomers come on board? Have you had any disruption of your culture?
Oh, yes.
Because of old regime mindset.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you come into a company which is already 12, 13 years old, right? You have a legacy. And that legacy is a strong legacy. Let's say at the same time, still you want to grow and accelerate, and that might not be the culture, right? That, driving for massive growth and massive acceleration. At the same time, there is a reason for the longevity of the company. So you want to make sure you respect that, and you transform while you bring in new people, right? And so you can get the exposure and experience across. It's not easy. It's a continuous balance, and it all starts with the leadership. So I think the key people within the organization which represent the cultures are the key leadership teams. So making sure you have that collaborative and passionate approach where everybody's repeating strategy. Also, strategy is key, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast, but without strategy, right, you don't really know where you're heading to, and you want to maintain and make sure you also, as you're repetitive in the processes, etc., that you're repetitive in the strategy and the continuation of outlining it, because there are always continuously new people coming and joining, which are not naturally exposed to it. But just the last point to it, I think it's an important one, and sometimes, and that's a little bit, being a company which is a little longer in the market, you might not be digitalized from the start, or you might have a lot of mushrooms which have grown. Making sure you build a very clear rigor platform on IT to enable the teams around the world to collaborate around one structure and infrastructure and platform is absolutely critical for scaling and growing it.
James?
Yes. So in terms of the structures for teams, I mean, what we've really done, I mean, our sales team's grown the fastest of all the teams. And so really it's just been about, as we scaled, giving promoting people very quickly, giving them responsibility, and kind of making sure that the main manager, our VP of sales, is doing a fantastic job, that she doesn't have too many direct reports, and that we just very rapidly give out responsibility to help the team scale, and then set very specific metrics that people have to deliver, and then really hold them to those metrics. And that's something that I'm a huge believer in across the whole company and across the board, is really assigning metrics for key leaders to deliver, and then kind of dissecting those metrics down to their reports, and then empowering people through metrics. So that's kind of one of my key approaches.
In your company, a typical team or a typical leader is going to have how many direct reports?
Right now, I'd say we're trying to keep it to a maximum of around 5 direct reports at the moment. I've got more than that at the moment, but that's kind of where we're trying to keep it.
Marc, and you've got 11 direct reports. I'm curious if you've got any plans to work on that. It's a lot of direct reports.
I do plan to work on that, right? But I also think that it sort of depends on, when you think about sort of the span of reports you have, sort of what the complexity is. Managing high complexity, you need to manage fewer people. When it's sort of less complexity, you can obviously manage more people with that. Look, this is something for me that's sort of a transition for where we are today. To kind of go back to the culture question, for me on a hiring standpoint, I will not hire someone if they're not a culture fit. I've actually turned down some pretty amazing people that just are joining the business for the wrong reasons, or it's quite clear they won't be a cultural fit. And to me, that's a no-go. We won't do that. When I think about kind of how we communicate that culture and kind of keep the strategy straight across the organization, what I'm doing more and more today is actually making sure that I'm keeping people on the same vision for where the organization is, doing a lot more communication across the the teams to be able to make that happen. But fundamentally, and this sort of goes back to the first question, which is, what has changed for me as well over time, is I actually reinvent my role, I think, about every 6 months. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm kind of asking myself how if I'm stuck in that role, then I haven't found someone that can take that and drive that forward so that I can focus on the next big problem we have. And my job's always to be out, 2 steps ahead of where the organization needs to be. And so why do I have a lot of reports right now? Well, we're expanding internationally very quickly. We've just raised a significant amount of capital, so we're making some new investments in product. And so I've got to keep my hand close on that. And within 6 months' time, I hope to dramatically scale that back down so that I have better control over the day and figure out what we've got to focus on next.
Help us better understand. So when you say people that aren't a cultural fit, so what does that mean at your company?
Look, at Winnow, we have a set of values that are, one, a passion for food. And we're very much business minded. I mean, we're a sustainability company, but don't get us wrong. We're all about, dollars and cents to our clients. But on top of that, we have a value of sort of radical transparency and humility. And those two are important for me because, one, with transparency, everybody knows where everybody else stands. And there's no politics, right? You don't create political organizations. They happen by a culture in an organization that doesn't actively fight against that issue. So if you want to prevent politics in your organization, what I believe you do is you proactively on a daily basis work to stomp it out. And that is everything from when people come and ask for special treatment, you don't give that. You are fair and transparent on why you make those decisions that you do. That when mistakes are made, it's clear that it's happened. No one's at fault, but we learn from it and we move on. You have a hierarchy of ideas. And also for me, going back to this area of sort of humility, if people come in and think that they're absolutely everything, well, those people aren't team players. And those people aren't willing to learn from their mistakes. And I'd much rather have people that are, have a good social contract with each other, that are all playing on the same team and doing so in a humble way, doing it in an excellent way, but doing it in a humble way so that you can really build an organization that can scale.
Have you found, and before I move on, have you found any particular team size? Have you found some cadence that you guys have kind of fallen somewhat in love with because you found it effective as far as a team size or anything of that sort?
No, I don't think any individual team has sort of an idea. I mean, look, in a development context, there's an ideal team size to run a sprint, right? But I think this will depend on geography. I think it will depend on function. There's classic numbers that as you scale past 20, everyone's no longer talking to you on a daily basis, so you have to more actively communicate across the organization what's happening. As we start to reach, 100, then it's almost impossible for everyone to know everybody's first name. And so you have to do more work to invest in those elements. So there are those aspects as you scale. But for us, I don't look across and say there's a team of 5 working on a problem that's really the sweet spot. It's more about what's fit for purpose for the problem.
No one size fits all.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it. Thomas?
Well, I think like everybody, we had some mistakes, and culture is the one as the other said, is the one that comes first, and then we'd say eagerness and talent and experience. We had a whole we had back and forth. Like 6 or 9 months ago, I would have said the same as James. We had a lot of young people, and we were very happy with their enthusiasm and everything they brought to the company. But nowadays we realize you also need a bit of seniority in order to avoid making 2 or 3 times or 4 times the same mistakes. It's not that the younger people will not get there. It's just that it will take them maybe 2 or 3 iterations. And so nowadays we are actually looking actively at keeping a right balance between young, very enthusiastic people and also some, I would say, people who have done it once or twice, and especially the ones who have failed a lot. So we have a lot of people who have been in startups or scale-ups that have gone broke and seen, what happens there, and that's helping us. But culture, is one of the main, it's kind of main criteria.
How would you define your culture? Help us understand your culture.
So we are in the construction sector, or actually trying to help the construction sector getting digital. So one of the main thing is very, very customer centric in all departments, because we need to learn them adopt technology. So that's one of the first parts. And well, we are a scale up, so we want to grow and grow fast. So having eager people who are very good at communication are things we're very actively looking at. And then we are investing a lot of time in trying to bring down our initial reasons why we went there, why we stick to this sector, why we love it, to everybody. So we try to make sure that everybody knows the story and the journey we went through, and making sure everybody's aligned. We actually, like I think some people here try to use an A4 where the main targets are, and try to bring that down.
Avi, before you answer, you got to show your T-shirt off.
My TravelPerk T-shirts?
Yeah. We're going to let you hop.
Wear it all the time.
Yeah.
So I think the communication point is super interesting, and something that I realized that we had to change was, going from a team of 10 to a team of 50 to a team of a bit more than 100 now. I find that we need to be way more planned in how we communicate to the team, and make sure that everybody is on the same page when you do so. So, for example, we do every Friday, we do end of the week meeting, all hands. So everybody's joining either physically or remotely if they're not in the office. Very few exceptions, unless, like in holiday or stuff like that, but mostly everybody joins. And then I cannot assume that people know, everybody knows exactly where everybody is. So we have to start from the same baseline, and then kind of build on top of that, and be very clear and very, very concise in the points that we want to deliver. Because if you have 15 points that you want to deliver within the range of an hour, and everybody is also drinking beers, so the attention span declines as the hour gets to its end. So very concise messages. Make sure that everybody's on the same page. Don't elaborate too much, and don't go to too many details. We have room for that, but that's not the right format. And be very transparent, like one of my colleagues here mentioned. Transparency, I think, builds a lot of trust, and also creates an environment that people feel that they can participate. So planned communication, knowing what we need to update the team on once a week at least, and then having everybody in the same room. And that's also why we don't do remote. So I know that a lot of companies manage to do remote well. We are concerned about it because of that, because of the communication issue, and can we really keep everybody on the same page if we're not in the same room once a week at least. So that's something that was very important for us as we scale the size of the team.
Can I just throw up on one?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, one of the things that was really critical for us, I think, was a huge contribution throughout. When we were very small to now, we're still quite small, but we did it. One of our head of customer success, Chris, brought in the idea of a daily stand-up. We have like a remote team, and initially it was everybody in the company on the daily stand-up, where we just go through what we're doing at the moment, mainly the focus being on the issues, the critical issues we had, and that really helped coordinate. And then at one point, as we grew bigger, we kind of dropped it, but then it was like a week or 2 weeks, we quickly picked it back up again, and then we put just the senior people, the senior team members on that call, and then kind of critical new functions like the product manager and the business strategy on it. And it's just made such a big difference to have that every day, and have that level of communication and focus, and just picking up on issues that could just slip by. I think that's been a huge element of our kind of success and growth.
Yeah, no, and thank you. Let me end, and we can make this relatively brief, and I'll start with you, Avi. Let me end on strategy, because strategy for us as we're scaling up companies is even as we're just operating companies that may not be scaling up, may not even be in growth mode, is just an ongoing process. It's never finished. I'm wondering, how do you vet the opportunities? Because when you're scaling up, it can seem like every opportunity may be a good one, and they may all be potentially good ones. So I'm curious, as we kind of go down the line, starting with you, Avi, how do you vet those opportunities so that you know which ones to move on?
Yeah, sure. So I think the strategy early days is to live to next week, right? So I have to admit, and maybe we got this one wrong. We didn't think so far away in time when we just started. We really focused on what we need to do to hit the next milestone, customer-wise, revenue-wise, product, etc. And a tool that helped us really to vet the ideas and also to keep alignment, of the team was using OKR, so objective and key results. It's a tool that is widely used in many tech companies, so we didn't, of course, invent it. And we adopted it really early, so I think we've been using it. So the company has been around for 3.5 years, and I think we've been using it for 3 years. So almost day one, we started using OKRs. And it kind of forces you, because of the framework, to choose between 3 and 5 objectives for the next quarter, and then having a very strict definition of how you measure your success with data, with numbers, not just with perceptions. So that's kind of the technical aspect of how we're using it. And the question of how do we choose which objective to pursue, we try to think about what will take us, us as a company to the next level, and segment it into top line growth, because we are in a travel business, so you have transaction volume, and then you have revenue out of it, which is two separate numbers. So what will take us to the next milestone, and it could be fundraise or break even, or whatever the milestone is for us. Setting up really ambitious goals for the next 18 months, which is pretty far away for us. We started doing so recently, relatively recently. So what is the next milestone in terms of transaction volume, revenue, and then what we call experience, or NPS, basically satisfaction of the customers from the product, which is a good indication that you're solving real pain points for your customers. And then setting really aggressive goals there, and then working our way backwards from the goal to a plan, and then all the way to a sprint, a weekly sprint, with probably the anchor is the quarter, so the OKR at a 3 months resolution. So what's for the next quarter, what are you going to do that will advance us towards this 18-month aggressive goal?
Thomas?
So yeah, I like the OKR. We're doing more of the tactical aspects and focusing on that too. And alignment is where so we are going through the OKRs now. So it's very nice to share the experience that we have. But the tactical goals is something we have in place since a couple of years now, and that's really helping us align everybody around the same, not only same values and vision, but also kind of what is the goal all of us need to share, and where do we all of us need to go through, and how do we all contribute in our daily jobs. I like the expression about the fact that everybody needs to know on a daily basis whether they had a good or a bad day. And that's for us. I mean, that's what we've been focused on. It's very hard, and I think everybody's sharing a similar experience when you grow, because you need to hire a lot of people and go through the frustrations and the learnings about how hard it is to recruit well and have a decent recruiting process. But in the meantime, you need to focus on the people who are in the company and trying to continuously align them on, okay, this is the direction we go, and not being bored about repeating all the time the same messages. So I think for me, that's been a challenge is actually you're not a CEO, but a chief reminder officer on a constant basis, saying over and over and over the same thing, because I don't know if it's now 5 or 7 times. People don't believe in what you say until they heard it 5 or 7 times from the same people or the management. And before you're able to reach every single employee 5 to 7 times, it's quite a lot of time you have yourself repeated it. So having the weekly all hands and things like that have also been things that we've been doing, as well as the stand-ups and things like that.
Kay-Ingo.
Yeah, kind of similar notion. I mean, we have a multi-year plan, and since quite some time now, because we've just gone through a big investment round to make sure that we are getting the right funding to get there. But to Thomas's point, continuous repetition of who we are, what we offer, who our customers are, what we want to offer, and also the path to get there is critical. We have outlined 5 key priorities for the company since more or less 2-3 years, which we're continuously working on, so everybody really understands. And that goes from R&D development to international expansion on strategic partnerships we want to occur, and continuously managing that around a key KPIs you measure progress against, and then adjusting them at the same time, right? So making sure you understand, what doesn't really matter while you're on the way is as critical as staying course on the few things you want to diligently manage. And that's how things have worked. From a meeting and rhythm cadence, it's a little harder for us, to have daily stand-ups with, in the morning for Asia, in the afternoon for the US, and I wouldn't say that we have gone through that, and having a really good plan and experience to share. It's we use collaboration tools. That's really important for us to make sure it gets across and people can share it themselves versus everything coming top down. But staying course on the key 5 things you want to achieve is critical, and making sure people understand how to get there.
James?
I think one of the, I guess because of the stage we're at and because we're a bit earlier, and also, we I guess last year was a lot about finding product market fit and really getting it right very rapidly. So we have like a roadmap and we have a plan, of course, but one of the really essential parts for me is like listening to customers, getting their feedback, going on site, visiting customers myself, and then getting feedback on what they want for the product, and then changing the plan very rapidly to get, to get the product to very quickly to where the customers wanted it, because that was kind of critical for our growth phase. When you're going from that seed to Series A stage, you're really trying to, just get the product market fit right, and then have a product that's really has some element that's better than the competition. We're also in our field, our market has been hugely disrupted by the new GDPR legislation, and so we've had to really get that piece of an element right, so that because we have a product that's directly affected by that. So that for us, reacting to the changes in the market and then listening to customers and feeding that back in furiously into the product development has been a really essential part of our growth from that seed to Series A stage.
Marc, I'm going to give you the last word.
So, frankly, I think that enough's been said, if I will. I hate sort of taking the last word on this, but it's something that I would just, echo what these guys said. I mean, we're now sort of past a place where we are focusing on sort of product market fit. I think we've kind of got that right, to now thinking about how we, operationally scale up sales and kind of get that to be as efficient as possible. And so the way that now we sort of communicate those targets is every month we have a company-wide sharing of our KPIs, and everyone in our business knows what our cash position is. Everyone in our business knows what our revenue was last quarter. Everyone in our business knows what deals can be done. And if you're not hitting your KPIs, that's uncomfortable, but it requires you to trust your team that transparency, that openness rallies everyone around what's important. And I think there's been a couple of times where our business in a quarter didn't go the way we wanted to go. And it was very easy for me to think about, sugarcoating what's happening, but you're robbing your team of the ability to actually solve the issue. And when you're a founder of a business that's past 20 to 30 people, as everyone on here is, there's no way you're going to do this yourself. So, my encouragement to anyone thinking about scaling up the business is, I'll just go back to what I said before, transparency, does a tremendous amount. And it's easier said than done, right? But sort of the true test is when you're able to share with everyone where the business is going, good or bad, and foster a conversation about how you fix that. That's when you really get everyone aligned, and that sharing in and of itself helps to move things forward because it aligns people, it gets people to understand where we're going, and it gets people to work hard towards what the end outcome is.
Very good. And have you been open book management, as we say here in the States, as far as sharing all the numbers? Is that something that you started day one or very early on?
Yeah, day one. It's been, you know, and whenever we've raised funding, we've always had a conversation with everyone in the business around kind of what we were doing and why we were doing it. And you know, it's not like it's a vote, but it's a conversation about we're going to go raise this capital. Now we're going to have higher expectations to make that happen. You know, part of that I think is kind of just a personality that sort of I have, and now the organization has. Part of that is we're a mission-driven business, and so we're all focused on solving one problem, and so that kind of simplifies things in reality.
No, great, good stuff. I appreciate it, gentlemen. We want to first of all thank the audience here at Facebook Live for watching today's episode. This is episode 11 of ScaleUp Heroes. Special thanks to all of these gentlemen, our panelists today, who are CEOs of their respective companies. We'll put links up to these gentlemen here at our Facebook page, and we encourage our audience to check out their companies. If you are interested in working for any of these gentlemen, you've now got some sense of who they are and the way they roll. Visit our page if you care to, our website, scaleupacademy.io. You can learn more about us and what we do. And if you find these live shows valuable, then we hope that you will hit that like button and share today's show. I'm your host, Randy Cantrell, and I hope that you'll join us next week. We continue our discussion, and next week we will bring you a conversation on scaling up marketing. Until then, everybody have a great week.
Cheers, bye.
Thank you.